the meme analysis of the casings and stuff. I'm gonna go pee real
Charlie
quick.
Kirk's life was engraved with a 12-year-old furry bashing meme. Notice his bulge, ooh woo, what's that? Which tells us an important thing. This assassination was a shitpost. That is the lens to analyze it through. Another of the casings references a video game, Helldivers 2, and a specific bomb that you could send on your enemies in the game with the command up, right, down, down, down. This command line sort of became a meme in image boards where it would be deployed to kind of represent, ending an argument, but almost more so as just like, if you know, you know. And that sort of signals the in-group there. Another of the 4 casings references Bella Ciao, which is an Italian anti-fascist anthem from the World War II era that has stuck around and remained very popular online. It's been used both in left and right-wing political contexts, and it's used in a lot of video games. And then the 4th and final shell casing was engraved with, if you're reading this, you're gay, LMAO. This was a shitpost. It was designed to be maximally disruptive and incomprehensible, cloaked in layer upon layer of irony so that nobody would know what he really meant unless they were our guy. This performs a kind of nihilism that plays really, really well on particular image boards and Discord servers where this guy spent most of his life. And I say most of his life because that furry meme is from 2013. He was 10 years old when it was first posted and became popular. He, like you and I, grew up alongside this part of the internet that trickled out through the other platforms that we went on and has actually informed and driven a lot of our politics. Half of the administration right now is content creators, and all of the guys who are wearing masks, going out on these deportation raids, the guys who are staffers of Republican members of Congress in these different executive departments, the guys who are 19 years old called in by Elon to doge things, these are all Reddit kids. These are all guys who were on 4chan in 2013, laughing at that furry meme. Now, the question everybody's asking is, was this kid a groiper? And the question everybody's parents are asking is, what is a groiper? So groipers are the most extreme fringe of this kind of image board nihilistic culture that I'm talking about. They're led by Nick Fuentes, who is a content creator and a streamer, and they really are about transgressing any boundary that exists. They are like explicitly white nationalists, really bad, horrible people. The name Groiper originates from this variant of Pepe the Frog, which comes about in the late 2010s, and these guys adopt it as a kind of collective self-portrait.
Great breakdown, by the way.
They make it their profile picture, they make it their moniker. There was the Groiper War of 2019, in which Nick Fuentes and his people trolled Charlie Kirk and Turning Point USA, showing up at these debate events and asking questions that would...
It feels embarrassing to know all of this, but I guess it's gotten to a point where you kind of have to know this stuff now because a lot of this extremely online shit is having an impact in the real world. I don't know how to describe it beyond I knew about all this shit. Most of you know about all this shit. I spent most of my political career talking about this stuff as well. And it's just crazy that I feel almost hypocritical telling you to be normal and not be so fucking online and consistently telling you that the bus driver test should be applied here. Can you describe the situation to a bus driver in 60 seconds in a convincing manner? And now I'm realizing we might need to explain all this to the bus driver. The bus driver test might not be that valuable or reliable any longer. Because I talk about Telegram quite a bit. I talk about Groipers. Telegram is the newer version of this. It's even more decentralized, it's even more insane, it's even more nihilistic and more violent. And I've covered that stuff extensively as well, especially in the past month. But this is if you think the Groiper stuff basically is the end of this depravity, it's not. I would say you got Reddit, you got 4chan, you got 8chan, you got Groipers, and then you have the Terrorgram, which is even crazier than that, right? Order of 9 Angles and all those other different groups, right? So it gets, and the further you go down that rabbit hole, the darker things get, the more cultish things get, and the more violent things get. But it's wonderful that every child basically has access to this unlimited fresh hell of online radicalization and have basically grown up with this kind of shit.
push Kirk to say things that were even more extreme than Kirk was already saying. So where Charlie Kirk took like one step toward these kind of white or Christian nationalist ideas, the Groypers took two steps. They demanded that he make the subtext text. One post people have been citing as proof of the Groyper hypothesis is this one from his mother's Facebook that shows...
Like, I don't think this is enough. I don't think this is enough to indicate that he's a Groyper. I'll be honest. And I said that to Jason Palladino as well. Fantastic reporter who was of the mind that this was like definitely a Groyper. And I basically said, because he posted that, but that's a Gopnik. That's just a Gopnik meme. Like, everyone has seen that. That's almost like a universal thing. The Slav Squad is not necessarily just a Groyper thing, right? Because he said, feel like you don't do this unless you're in some right-wing nihilistic brain-rotted space. I say, yeah, I saw that as well. I don't know how to weigh that over the Chowbella, though. Like, that could be Gopnik posting, which is across the political spectrum. Need more info. Groypers usually hail previous shooters and have had way more aggressive slogans they use to signal. And that's what I mean. Like, if this was a far-right, this was like convincingly a far-right figure and was like shooting Charlie because he was frustrated that he wasn't like far-right enough or whatever, I think you would see a clearer indication of that. Okay? You would see a clearer indication of that because these guys don't hide their perspective. Sometimes they'll troll and they'll masquerade as like, they'll use leftist terms. Even Chowbella could be utilized by like Groypers or whatever, but like there would be more of an indication of their far-right leanings somewhere, right? Like, so that's why I'm saying still right now that it's too soon to tell. I haven't been able to build a proper psychographic profile for the shooter and can convincingly tell you like what the most likely radicalization pipeline was for this person. What I have found though, and this is something that I saw with Luigi Mangione as well, is that we are now in the age of shooters that are how do I put this? With shooters with like promising careers, like upstarts, like people who have really good GPAs, people who might have even played sports. You know what I mean? Like that's usually not the expectation. Like oftentimes when you see someone who violates the social contract in such a severe way, when you look to their background, it's usually never a person with like a prospect with a promising career ahead of themselves or with successful friendships and whatnot. It's usually like a socially isolated guy who's been brain poisoned by spending too much time online, right? They're oftentimes very like antisocial people. So I do think that with Luigi Mangione and with this shooter as well, when you look at their background, when you look at their trajectory, that actually doesn't fit the previous shooters and their psychographic profile at all. And that's kind of interesting. I would say that's like, that says something, right? A Gen Z colleague described to me black pill mindset to me in a way I'd never heard before. For younger kids today, especially men, there's a pressure to get rich at any cost or get famous at any cost. They use irony and crude memes, the massive deep anxiety they feel. What stood out to this person was lol, nothing matters attitude, Kirk's assassin. Yeah, he was trying to be nonchalant while doing the most chalant thing. You know what I mean? Like there is an air of like, I don't even care about this, this thing that I'm doing. And it is also very interesting. What stood out to this person was lol, nothing matters attitude. Kirk's assassin tries so hard to project in his ironic bullet inscriptions. Like if you see this, you're gay, Lamau. Like that's, that's crazy. Political, but mostly stupid meme Halloween costumes and the gamer culture he was steeped in. His politics almost feel secondary. We're seeing an uptick in ironic phrases written on bullet casings, and manifestos are peppered with very online references meant to be read and understood not by the media, but by these shooters' online peers. They want to be remembered as the people who went for it. It speaks to an alienation that younger Americans, disproportionately men, try to heal not through therapy, but through online game communities, Discord, and validating themselves online. I mean, I think this is like a boomer assessment, but it's not entirely wrong. It's something that I have obviously noticed. There's a lot of shared experiences in these online spaces, like a desperate way to create a sense of community, something that I speak to all the time. All the way to like the most depraved corners of the internet, like the Kiwi Farms people who get together and engage in the act of what they call A-logging, autistic logging, or lolcowing a person with like significant mental health complications, like stalking them, gang stalking them, almost professionally, and trying to ruin their lives professionally. And you get like a sense of community off of doing that, right? That is a thing that people do, and it is deeply, deeply antisocial. And obviously, the antidote to that is developing interpersonal relationships in the real world. But I think that kind of community fostering creates a replacement that isn't a healthy alternative to developing a real relationship in the real world and being around normal human beings, but it's enticing enough that people don't even realize that there is something that is missing from their lives. So in that regard, this feeds into that isolation that I think people have. You know, that's definitely something that I have seen online quite a bit. And it's something that I try to push people away from in my community, at the very least, by forcing them and pushing them to engage in community organizing, labor organizing, and activism in general that forces them to go outside and be around other people and actually to talk to other people from a diverse ideological profile so that they can, you know, learn how to be a human being. I'm fortunate enough that I'm 34 years old and I went through these experiences when I was growing up, and therefore I have this this foundation to build upon, so that even when I spend every waking moment online now, I still have this background. I still have this built-in understanding of the world and real world experiences. You mean protesting? Yes, protesting, activism of all different sorts, joining local organizations, things of that nature, right? Playing pickup basketball, going to a public park. These are things that are incredibly important for every single person to stay grounded to the real world in some way by force in an increasingly online universe that we exist in. And I think the inverse of that is absolutely going to Discord circles and like going to splinter Discord servers and like increasingly isolating yourself from even people that you are, even people in a broader community that you might be a part of. And yeah, there's two different ways to go about it. And I feel like a lot of people choose the easier alternative, which is to be sheltered from any sort of counters under the guise of anonymity online, and you know, increasingly engaging in more antisocial behavior like this. Okay, so, but the structural issues are obviously the lack of hope for a better future for many in Gen Z, and we're seeing that almost universally at this point. Like, material conditions are deteriorating, and you see people react to that. You see younger generations react to that with protests, sometimes riots, and also these kinds of decentralized acts of violence. It's a truly terrifying predicament. So it also speaks to the lack of hope, but about the future, it's hard to say if these people even have coherent left-right ideologies. So much is being overridden. No, I think they do. They have a modified version of left-right ideologies, but there's still a left ideological leaning or a right ideological leaning. It's just harder to parse through and harder to pick up on, given that like all the irony poisoned posturing makes it very difficult for boomers and very difficult for people who don't speak this kind of language to truly comprehend. And that's where we're at with this shooter as well. I think it's not entirely wrong, but there's an uptick of white male shooters from middle or high income families with careers ahead of them, noticing their futures are fucked and noticing systemic discrimination below them and throwing their future away to release the tensions as the political system is caving. I think it's a fair assessment. At the same time, they're stewing in social media ecosystem where algorithms feed them a constant stream of rage bait. And so they form parasocial hatreds. As the shooter's family said, he'd only become political recently and seemed to fixate on Charlie Kirk's viral content. What Governor Cox said is broadly right. Social media is cancer. When coupled with the social alienation epidemic we're seeing in America, it's convincing people that reality is something less than real. If you're never going to be rich, why not be infamous? The traditional venue for that was school shootings, but those have become so commonplace now that the shooters barely register in our media coverage. We're numb to it. What gets headlines now? Political shootings. Even better if your message is confusing for the normies. I mean, okay, the thread unwinds at this point a little bit because it's not just social media. I think social media is perfectly fine as a tool for organizing, as a tool for connecting with other people, as a tool for information dissemination. But there also needs to be a healthy balance there also needs to be a healthy connection to the real world, to real human beings that you know, whether it be your family members, whether it be your friends, whether it be your coworkers. And I think that is a part of the problem. Anyway, the rest of it is the thread unwinds a little bit there, but let's go back to the meme profiles. Like I said, I'm not so certain that this person was a groyper or someone of the ideological left background at all. But let's continue.
As a meme for Halloween, it seems like the meme is Gopnik Pepe, which is a 4chan meme to my understanding. But I don't quite associate it with Poll, which is like the political board on 4chan that most people are talking about it. I see it more as like a K meme and sort of like a rare Pepe type thing. But again, like many Pepe or groyper memes, the core of this is it's a lonely male figure in sort of an immiserated landscape looking sad. And that's part of the story I wish more people were talking about. What's driving our political violence isn't just polarization, where one side is getting more radical and kind of undermining democracy, nor is it algorithms, like some have said, that are like pickling the brains of young people. It is that feeling, which these Pepe memes represent, of you're always going to be alone, you're never going to have a future, and you're never going to have a voice. And that feeling, which is by no means rare or unusual in our society today, collides with a particular set of circumstances. This long entrenched nihilistic online tradition, the ready availability of firearms, and the increasing derangement of mainstream discourse, this ambient sense of like tension and volatility that exists in the air to produce stuff like this. And we're going to see more and more of it unless those root causes are addressed and unless we find a way to offer a better future to people.
So I do agree with the overall point, and I obviously talked about it as well. So I'm just going to quickly go through the New York Times op-ed that I wrote, because